My microphone wasn't plugged in, and I just did like a whole thing. Anyway, welcome to my life. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Keely. Let's see, so far I've already talked about the producers, the fact my dad was in Vietnam, and we started talking about the award-winning Oliver Stone film Platoon, and how Vietnam's like my thing. So anyway, my mom and my dad took my Nana to see this when it came out, one of my all-time favorite war movies. And she said, well, I liked it, but there was an awful lot of cursing in it. My little great-grandma, my little Nana, she was so sweet. Sweetest lady ever, but like, there's a lot of language. There's some language in this movie, which I don't care. Like, my parents never let me say anything, so now I say like everything. I have the worst mouth ever. Like, you guys have no idea. But no, it was a great movie. My dad said it's very realistic. He said when they were walking off the plane, when like Charlie Sheen and all the new guys first show up, and my dad said he could feel the heat. He was like, every time I'd be like, man, it's really hot in here, or hot outside, or whatever, my dad would be like, you think this is hot? In Vietnam, it was 130 degrees and 100% humidity every time. I'd be like, yes, Papa, you're right. Vietnam is much hotter than here. My friend Andrea, her dad does the same thing. He's like, Vietnam was hot. We're like, I'm sorry, I just won't ever complain about anything. Be like, man, I don't know. I feel like you could say like, I saw the biggest spider in my room the other day, and my dad would be like, in Vietnam, the spiders were bigger than your damn head. Papa, you know not to scare me like that. I have arachnophobia, so it's not really something I want to imagine right now. I'm sorry, guys. I just got back in town I had my mom's birthday last night, and I'm still recovering from surgery, so like getting out of my house by itself is a lot for me, but like getting out of my house, we drove an hour to get to the city I'm from, and then to like socialize, and then I slept in my daughter's pull-out bed, which is fine, but like I also like kind of couldn't sleep because I can't sleep when I'm in like when I'm not in my own like bed. I can't sleep on planes. I can't sleep in cars. My daughter loves a good car nap. I'm like, not me. I can't. I'm tired, and I'm not feeling great still from this surgery. I'm having a really hard time recovering. So excuse me if I'm kind of all over the place, but
welcome to the 33rd.
Analyzing Evil, Sergeant Barnes from Platoon. So I'm excited because, first of all, Tom Berenger is fine. I really love this movie. This movie is just like, I'm just interested to see if there's a new perspective or something new I can learn about this movie, because like I literally can quote this movie word for word. Johnny Depp is in this movie, by the way. A lot of people don't know, like, this is like Johnny Depp's like first like big movie, like big movie that he was in. Let's go ahead and let's watch this video and see what they have to say about it. All right, let's watch this video because I've already done a long intro, and I have to go to dialysis tomorrow. Okay, let's go. Oh, he's so fine. Tom Berenger is such a good-looking. I think he's fucking hot as shit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 33rd episode of Analyzing
Reality,
Evil, featuring Sergeant Barnes from Platoon. In a
baby
film
Charlie
where many
Sheen.
deplorable behaviors are displayed across a wide array of supporting characters.
Matt Dillon's brother right there, Kevin Dillon. Wait. Yeah, Kevin Dillon. Kevin Dillon. I can't remember his name. But yeah, that's Matt Dillon's little bro.
Sergeant brother. Barnes manages to stand out above the rest.
The guy from Scrubs. Dude from Scrubs. Willem Dafoe. Duh. Everyone knows Willem Dafoe. I know his name. I'm just like... John C. McGinley. Isn't that his name?
And the incredible performance of Tom Berenger in this role give us a character
so
whose
good.
actions and behaviors tell the
so
story
scary.
of a deeply troubled man who's found his humanity
He's so
dampened
fine,
by the
though.
horrors of war. In this video, I'm going to take you through all the aspects
the
of Barnes that
do-rag.
make him such an effective antagonist, and a
I call it
harrowing
that,
example of what can happen to a man who's dwelled in the dark for too long. Without further ado, let's begin. Sergeant Barnes has a stern, solemn, and menacing face, one that is rarely seen with a smile or any hint of joy.
Yeah, because it's
The
all...
scars that line his face and the cold, dead eyes that lay buried beneath them are telling
Every
of a
time
man
I
who's
think of that guy, I see that guy. What is this fucking line that I always... I can't say it on here. There's some language in this movie. What are you saving up to be? That guy is like this guy is like the shithead. Like, okay, so my dad said
horrors during
that
his time
like these
serving in the
lieutenants would
Vietnam
come in
War.
from
His scars aren't only limited to his
fucking
face,
West
and we can see
Point
during the scene
and college and shit, and they would come in thinking they like knew how to lead a platoon. And my dad ended up he got out of the Marines as a sergeant, but they called him Sarge when he was over there, so he's a sergeant. This is from what I'm gathering, but my dad at some point was Sarge. He said that these lieutenants would get them like into friendly fire situations, or they would just fuck things up, and Marines would lose their lives, and so they would get fragged, like frag out, Oopsie daisy. So the mistakes he makes in this are what got guys fragged, because they were just very they were not prepared for what they were getting into. They just were prepared for what military academy told them they were getting into, if that makes sense. And a lot of them were rich, and a lot of them could afford to go to college. My dad had to join the Marines because he couldn't afford college, and he didn't want to get drafted into the Army. Because my whole family are Marines, pretty much. Except my grandpa on my mom's side. He was the one who was in the Sherman tanks, and they liberated DeKalb. But anyway, but the lieutenants like this guy, they got a lot of casualties.
beneath them are telling of a man who's seen and experienced
Man, John C. McGinley's character is such a dickhead in this movie.
The Vietnam War.
I love
his
Willem
scars aren't
Dafoe.
only limited to his face, and we can see during the scene where he's
What
playing
an
cards
actor.
that he suffered more than one injury during the course of this war.
Yeah, no shit.
Adding another layer of torment to an already troubled
Wait a
character. His clothes standard issue infantry. But what's most remarkable about his choice of clothing
Man, this
is
is a
that
really
it's so
sad scene.
unremarkable. We never see Barnes wearing anything that isn't a part of the standard issue uniform.
Yeah, he's pretty
and unlike his compatriots, his helmet is clean and neat, containing no writing, save for some illegible script along the band.
My dad
that may
had
only be
Kansas
there
written on the back
to help
of his
him
helmet.
identify his helmet. He does carry a pack of cigarettes and a folded-up pamphlet of some sort in this band, but other than that, his uniform is entirely standard. This appearance is very much in line with the man Barnes is, as what we see here is a man who appears to be no nonsense,
Regimented.
and one who has a countenance that relays to us a grave seriousness
Sergeant Barnes,
that comes from the many years he's likely
guy.
spent living a reality of near constant warfare. Which brings us to his personality, which we can assume has been heavily affected by his time spent as a soldier. We have no way of knowing what kind of man Barnes was before becoming a soldier, but we know that he's now a cold,
in a body
jaded,
bag.
and cynical individual
That scene.
with little compassion beyond a desire to see his men kept alive.
Wasn't me,
This
sir.
is one
It
of
was
the precious
Junior.
few virtues we can
Sarge
find
was
in
Junior.
Sergeant Barnes. However, his noble pursuit of trying to keep his men alive is underscored by the fact that he doesn't concern himself with their well-being beyond their status as a living person. Barnes could care less whether the men serving with him are miserable.
Just take the
All
key
that
about
matters to Barnes is that they live. This is evident from the way he treats his fellow soldiers, how he berates them whenever they
R.I.P.
show any sign of weakness.
It's funny to me how people are like, how are they just sitting around and smoking? Wouldn't that call attention to them by the enemy? I'm like, they smoked a lot. There was also a lot of H use going on. There was a lot of drug use going on. It was the 60s to go anyway.
them whenever they show any sign of weakness, or how he totally disregards any negative feelings they might be having in any given moment. But it's equally as evident that the death of his comrades profoundly affects Barnes, as we can see when he's visibly shaken up after two men die.
I don't know, we see him visibly shaken up, but he's definitely,
and sorrowful at what he likely perceives.
He looks like he's,
where he looks forlorn
deep in thought.
And sorrowful at what he likely perceived as lives lost too soon. Deaths that could have been prevented, and men that could have been useful. Knowing this about Barnes, I wouldn't go as far as to say that Barnes only cares about saving men because every man lost is yet another soldier they can't utilize to fight the war.
Maybe it's how
but
he
this notion
reflects on
has to be at
himself.
least partially relevant, as Barnes' primary concern is undoubtedly winning the war above all else. Now, Barnes seems to have a superiority complex, but I have my doubts
Barnes
that
is
this
just there
behavior
to-
was something present within
to
Barnes before
do
the war.
his job and
Rather,
fuck
he
shit up and then
cultivated
go
it over
home.
years of watching inexperienced officers
I think
like
Barnes
Lieutenant
wants to
Wolf
stay alive.
undermine the war effort. His experience in the field plays into
Really,
this,
I don't know.
as Barnes is not only a capable soldier, but a capable commander as well. And after what he perceives as years
See,
of
that's why I
inaction
think
from
he
both
was
his
like in
commanding
some other
officers
war,
and the United States
Korea,
government,
something.
Barnes has gained insight into the inner workings of this war, and he has come to the conclusion that in order to end this war, drastic and harsh measures need to be taken.
Maybe he
He's
came
a man
in
of
65
action,
and the year
one who
drank, I
doesn't
don't
drag
know.
his feet in doing what needs to be done, and one who is willing to do whatever it takes to ensure the
this
safety of
is
his
so
men
sad.
and the success of his mission. Now, these traits aren't necessarily bad, especially during times of war, but in Sergeant Barnes, these somewhat noble ideas are undermined by his complete disregard for
That
human
friendly
life
fire
and
incident.
suffering, as well as his rage, cruelty, and vindictive nature. Barnes has absolutely
There's Johnny Depp!
sympathy for his enemy.
There's Johnny Depp! There's little baby Johnny Depp! Aww! Oh, look at him!
No sympathy for his enemy whatsoever, be they civilian or soldier.
Little baby Johnny Depp.
This behavior is not only expressed by Barnes in this film. As
My
many of
dad
his
was
fellow
only, he
infantrymen
said he
seem to share
turned
the same
19
views
over
as
there,
he,
so my
which
dad
are
was
highlighted
18,
during the
19,
scene
so
where they're scouring
they
the
were
village
young.
for Viet Cong. These sentiments are understandable to an extent, as for a great many
The surfing's
individuals,
gonna be
there
good.
are
I
only
love
so
that
many
guy.
friends and allies you can see murdered before your heart hardens against anyone and everyone who you feel is perpetuating this violence.
Yeah.
Emotions are certainly high after the
Forrest
loss
Whitaker.
of men they just experienced.
I love him in this.
Especially after finding Manny's corpse pinned up in such a brutal way.
Manny, where
Here,
you at?
Chris Taylor says it best when he describes Barnes as the eye of the storm of
Them
rage
motherfuckers.
that was building up in all of these men at that moment. And again, these feelings are completely understandable. What's inexcusable is acting on these feelings of hatred and murdering innocents in a fit of rage. Feelings are feelings, but actions are another thing altogether. And when we watch Sergeant Barnes shoot a woman in cold blood, simply for being concerned about what these men have done to her
I
village,
think Barnes
is
might have been
heinous,
in
to say the
prison.
least. Subsequently holding a gun to
Oh.
her daughter's head in a
I think maybe he was in prison before. Maybe that's why he's all cut up. I'm telling you, he has no problem murdering people in this movie. Like, he very clearly does not think twice about it. Maybe he was in prison. Maybe, he's probably just a criminal. I don't think he was in
Subsequently
Korea.
holding a
I think
gun
he was
to her
just a
daughter's
criminal.
head in attempts to coerce information from her husband is just adding another layer to an already despicable act of murder. War isn't always a black and white affair, and sometimes an act of evil is in service to the greater good. Here, though, we see a man who's taking quick action based off of tertiary intel that he hasn't had any time to confirm. Yes, they have Czechoslovak weapons and an overabundance of rice, but if a war is ravaging your country,
These AI
I think
voices
anybody
are a
would
lot.
be taking measures to defend themselves and provide provisions for their community. It's true, they could have been harboring Viet Cong as he suspected, but
mean-
again, he had no way of confirming this information. And
Didn't
when
they
it comes
find
down to
guns
it,
in the rice,
this
though?
act is nothing
Didn't
more than a
they
hasty
found a
attempt
bunch of, like,
at
Soviet-
intimidation
that's
and
what you just said,
coercion
they found a
in
bunch
an
of
event
Soviet,
that transforms
like,
Barnes
rifles
in our eyes
and a
from
bunch of
callous and cynical
rice,
man
like-
to a ruthless, cruel,
Now,
and
a
cold-blooded
lot of
murderer.
Viet Cong would
It's in
t-
this
take
scene as well,
over
where we get to
villages
see
and
the
be like,
information of his already
hey, guess
hostile
what? We live
relationship
here
with
now, and you're
Alliance.
going to feed us and let us store our shit here. And if any Americans come through, you haven't seen us, and they'll tunnel under these people's villages. That is something that happened.
Is nothing more than a hasty attempt at intimidation and coercion,
And some
and an event that
villagers harbored
transforms
them.
Barnes in our eyes from
But
a callous and cynical man to a ruthless,
that would
cruel,
probably go
and
through the
cold-blooded murderer.
elders of the
It's in this
community
scene
and
as well where we get to see the inflammation of his already hostile relationship with Elias, which highlights a facet of Barnes that I mentioned before, which is already prevalent in his treatment of the Vietnamese, his vindictive nature. Now, I don't believe his quest for revenge against Elias after this event is only rooted in the fact that he's ratted on him, or that he personally slighted him. Rather, it's just as Elias says during a conversation with Taylor. Barnes believes in what he's doing. Barnes isn't so much looking to get back at Elias, as he is looking to eliminate what he perceives as a weakness that's bringing down his platoon and the war effort. He even says as much himself during his confrontation with Taylor's group in their hangout, where he states during his speech that he doesn't have a problem with a man who does what he's told, but in his mind, Elias wasn't, because he was going against what orders Barnes personally envisioned for him to follow. Obviously, there was also self-preservation in mind when he murdered Elias, as Elias was going to tell the truth of what Barnes had done back in the village, and possibly get Barnes court-martialed. But regardless, I feel Barnes would have eventually killed Elias, whether or not this had happened. Either that, or he assumed a man like Elias wouldn't last much longer, conducting himself the way he had.
They have tension through the whole movie.
Barnes is jaded.
He is so fine.
And cynical, and his reasons for being this way can be deduced from that same speech I mentioned a moment ago. Here, Barnes berates the men,
man, what a hunky
telling
man Tom Berenger is,
or killing, and that Elias was full of it. A crusader who was blind to the cold hard reality of the world.
Yeah, he comes in and
Barnes
kills their
feels that
buzz.
through his experiences,
like bad.
He has come out ahead of the men that surround him. That it's he who has the greatest understanding of what it means to kill.
I never noticed that he tries to hit
and those
that.
who believe otherwise are nothing but fools. Fools who hope to end a war with compassion and mercy when they should be brutal and remorseless. What do these men know of hardship? What do they truly know of those you care for dying before you? Of ending a man's life with the intent to survive and to be victorious? Beneath the hard exterior of Barnes lies a man whose hardships have weighed so heavily upon his soul that they have crushed every ounce of goodwill and compassion that he may have once held. Though these men suffer the same pain as Barnes, and have lived through many of the things he has become so disillusioned with the common man and their flawed efforts to fight this war, that he cannot see past his own pain to recognize or acknowledge the same pain that those around him are experiencing.
He has
and
no
that
empathy.
is what has damaged Barnes to the point that he's become a man.
You guys think Barnes would be in MAGA? I feel like he probably would.
Or them, nothing more, and nothing
He'd probably
less.
be in a militia.
The irony of Barnes chastising these men for using marijuana to escape from reality, claiming he doesn't need an escape like that,
I don't see Barnes.
and then taking a swig of whiskey, makes it all the more evident that Barnes is entirely blind to the truth of himself and
he'd
those
be in
around him.
QAnon.
He's so caught up in his own misery and negative outlook on the world that he has no time to consider anything else around him. He's become consumed with the idea of death and victory at any cost.
I mean, that
a man
happens
who no
when
longer
you're
has
in
any
a
fear,
really,
one
really
who heads into
bad
battle
war.
without any concern for his own person.
Oh,
And much
that
of Barnes'
M60 belt fed,
humanity
hoorah!
has been usurped by a constant focus on warfare. It's no wonder that
I saw this really dope bumper sticker, and I'm sure you can get it as a shirt, and it said, "Happiness is a belt-fed weapon." I was like, fuck yeah, it is! M60. I got to shoot an M60 on a full auto range once. It was so awesome. I got to shoot an M16 too. Duh. Vietnam era. Oh, it was so fun.
It's no wonder then that at the end of the film, we find Barnes in a state of near madness. A look on his face as he's lifting his shovel high above his head to bring an end to Taylor that tells us that behind those eyes, whoever Robert Barnes was has been totally devoured by this war,
To think he
leaving
could have
only
stopped
an
the whole
empty
winning
and broken man
thing.
whose primal emotions and traumas
Do you remember
have dissolved
that?
him into a hollow being.
How do you go
devoid
from being
of
in an
emotion?
Oliver
It's only
Stone
fitting that
movie
he
to
should suffer
like
the consequences
whatever
of his
Charlie Sheen
actions.
is doing now?
And at this end, we must ask ourselves, who was Sergeant Barnes? He was a man who became jaded and cynical after living through years of conflict, death, and misery, and a man whose moral compass, humanity, and general outlook on life had been thrown irreparably out of place by the horrors
I don't know, maybe
of war.
Barnes knew
His experience during this
wasn't gonna make it
time
home.
gave him the idea that it was he who had seen the truth,
So he just
the
gonna
one
fuck.
who had come to know the inner workings of both war and death, of which only he truly understood. This caused Robert Barnes to distance himself from any and all things that he considered weak and soft, and the entities he perceived as undermining his efforts to end this war by whatever
Yeah, he
means
didn't like that
necessary.
lieutenant. Nobody really
Though he
did.
was charismatic, strong,
He was
and
kind of-
experienced,
he kinda
the
sucked.
pain he had endured superseded these traits to leave us with a man who was condescending merciless,
Little baby Johnny
and
Depp.
ruthless. A brutal example of what
Little
lengths
baby
humans are
Johnny
willing to
Depp.
go to when they're pushed to the brink. Sergeant Barnes, without a doubt, committed acts of evil in pursuit of his own warped sense of justice and victory. But let us not forget the greater evils that molded Barnes
Man,
into
what
the
a good-
man
this
we
is
see
such a
in
good
this
movie.
film. The evils of war, violence,
Watch
suffering,
Platoon in a minute.
and death, all of which have the potential to turn anyone of any background
Who's the
or belief
cinematographer?
to abusing the very evil
I'll look it up.
that they so despise. Sergeant Barnes is a terrifying example of this, a lesson in the limits of the human soul and the horrors of war, horrors that can pierce one's heart and bury them
My dad was
under an
fucked up
avalanche
till the
of
day he
evil.
died from this war.
Thank you all for tuning into this episode
That was a good
of Analyzing
video.
Evil,
Sorry,
and I hope you've enjoyed. What are your thoughts on Sergeant Barnes? Did I miss anything? Let me know down below, and leave a suggestion for a villain you'd like to see featured in a future episode while you're at it. If you liked this video
I subscribed.
and want to see more like it appearing in your feed, click the subscribe button to keep up.
I feel like I am because I've seen this come up.
And feel free to leave a like while you're at it. Thank you once again to all of my existing subscribers.
Wait,
for
I'm
your
not
continued
subscribed?
And incredible support. If you'd like to
Well,
support
I am
the
now.
channel even further, consider signing up as a patron over on Patreon.
So I'll add a link to this creator's to this video so you guys can go find the creator and subscribe, because I thought I was subscribed. I kept seeing this on my suggested, but I guess I wasn't subscribed, so I am now. Awesome. Looking forward to seeing more from them. I'm pretty sure that's an AI voice. I really hope they drop that, because it's such a big turnoff for me. I know it's a lot of work making these videos, and they obviously put a lot of time into it, and maybe it is their real voice. I don't know. I can't tell anymore what's an AI voice and what isn't, but I just kind of was getting the AI voice. The AI voice, oh, here, let's see what some of the comments say. Oh, shit. Shoot. Told you guys. I'm trying to work on it. Scary part is that Barnes is probably a real person. Stone said he based the characters in Platoon on individuals or amalgamations of several individuals that he served with in Vietnam. I mean, Fields of Fire by Lieutenant James Webb. James Webb was my dad's lieutenant, and fuck. And my dad was like, yeah, those are all obviously not real characters, but he was like, yeah, all the characters in it like aren't real people, but like they're based on, or like they're exaggerations of real people. I mean, everybody takes inspiration from their real life when creating things. I agree. Can I say that Tom Berenger's portrayal of Sergeant Barnes is one of the finest performances in film history, because he is fine as fuck. No, he really was like fantastic in this. My dad, blah blah blah. This guy said his dad was in Vietnam. He said when he was a kid, said something like that. Barnes is a bad dude. To which my father replied, "Yes, but in combat, that's the guy you want in your foxhole." True. That guy will fight like hell. Yeah, you guys smoke this shit to escape reality. I am reality. It's such a good scene. Said he's been shot 7 times. Oh yeah, they do say that in the movie. Yeah, the only thing that killed Barnes in this Barnes. So he's been shot 7 times. So I guess he did get shot a bunch. And I mean, my uncle did it. I believe that can happen. My uncle got shot a whole shit ton, and he still went back out. So, yeah, there is that one scene where he's trying to remove the shrapnel from that guy, and he burned his fingers, and he's like, medic. Anyway, yeah, this is a good video. It was interesting to think about. Makes me realize I don't know as much about this movie as I thought I did. I mean, I do. I mean, I know more than like the average person about this movie, but as far as like, I'm just learning a lot. And also there's things that I forgot about, like how they mentioned he had been shot 7 times. Completely forgot about that part. As I'm watching it, I can tell you, I can quote it with it, but like I can't I'm not recalling this information. So it's nice to remember things, learn new things, have things brought up. Oh my God, they have one on Daniel Plainview. There will be blood. I drink your milkshake. Oh my God, that's another fantastic movie. I mean, we need to watch this one next. Okay, guys. Well, I'm gonna watch this one. Let me know if you like videos like this. Oh yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Okay, I love you. Bye.